We'll hold a public hearing tonight, Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. Hearing being held in the District Administration Building and live stream through YouTube. Are you ready, by the way?
Yeah, but give me 1 sec. Volume's working, but I got a camera issue. Hang on 1 sec.
Okay.
You're frozen. All right, we're good. Sorry, Mr. Pucci.
Want to start again, or
Yes, please.
start again?
Yeah, sorry.
Members of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District will hold a public hearing on our 2022-23 budget. Tonight, Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. Hearing is being held in the District Administration Building and live streaming through YouTube. Turn the public hearing over to Dr. Coates.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci. As we have had ongoing public dialogue, both with the board, with those community members that have attended our meetings and been able to view on live stream, this is our legal obligation to review one last time the proposed budget that will go before the community. To allow for a high-level summary, we can turn to Mr. Linden, who will go through a brief overview of the proposed budget again, and then at the end we'll open up any questions. Mr. Linden, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Coates. So just a couple of highlights of things that are in this budget. Number of staffing increase that we went over last time. There's a new line to replace the buses out of the budget for cash. What that does is it saves the district the expense of interest for borrowing the money. And as a side benefit, the state, with their formula, still gives you state aid on the interest even if you don't have to pay. That's a nice side benefit. We have a very new line of transfer $1 million to the capital fund. And let me explain what that does. When the voters approve the budget and $1 million is in there, that money can then go to the capital fund to do various kinds of repairs and things like that might be needed without having to do a separate vote and without having to borrow that money. Again, saving interest. That can accumulate over several years. If there's maybe a roof or something that needs replacing, that might be $2 or $3 million. That money can be accumulated and then the work can be done. So long term, as you may know from your own mortgage, you can save a lot of money without having to borrow that money. So that's a big advantage. There's additional money for summer curriculum work and staff development. There's a new budget line for classroom furniture to replace that gradually, and textbooks and security cameras, replacing old servers, various things. And all this is done by still keeping the tax levy to 0%. This basically because we got a nice increase in state aid. That's the highlights.
Very good. Pucci, turn it back to you then.
Okay, we'll take any questions about the budget. I'm showing no questions. That concludes our public hearing. Motion to close the hearing. Tom? Billy? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Dr. Coates. We'll now move into the regular meeting of the members of the Board of Education. I call to order the meeting. And next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of meditation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda, the Board of Education acknowledges the treasury reports for February 2022 and March 2022, and the claims auditor's report for quarter 3. Next on the agenda, we have privilege of the floor. First in order tonight is Brett Wheaton.
Good evening. My name is Brett Wheaton. I have 4 children in the district. I want to first say that, I hope that the 2 children today at the middle school are doing well. but I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Coates and to the board. I'm sure that you support him for the operation today. I think it was needed, unfortunately, but it's something we have to keep doing. Social media is a blessing and a curse, right? So the curse part is I've already seen, I'm sure that you guys have, that a lot of parents already questioning you and your decision. Hope that you steadfast with that. Continue on, that we can convince the public that there's no way if you were to broadcast this out beforehand, it's going to be fruitless. And if you do it while it's occurring, it could be dangerous. There could be a kid that tries to ingest something in the middle of it to try to get rid of it or not get caught, so that would be horrible. I hope that you're also supporting not only your building administrators with this, but the next step is your teachers. Your teachers are seeing it every day. They're the ones so that they can come forward without fear of parents, and that they know that you have your support, hopefully the support of all of us. But I have a question with the operation itself. I understand how it works from experience, and that you have school administrators that would be talking to the kids afterwards to debrief them or interview them or however you want to call it. My question is, obviously you guys are experienced and the teachers that are there experience in what occurs in the school, but this problem, although it's occurring in the school, it's originating outside the school. I want to make sure we don't have silent information which is useless to law enforcement and to actually solving a problem. So is there any training for the people that are conducting these interviews in law enforcement, which is really what, in other words, not specifically, but have law enforcement personnel teach them what they should be looking for, what they should be asking for, to not just like get other kids, but it's not kids making this. This is coming from outside the district being brought in. We need to get those people. We need to get the source and cut the source off. And if law enforcement isn't getting that information, or if someone doesn't know how to ask the proper information, which law enforcement would be experienced in doing. So is there any training? Is anyone sought training for these people in the district that are doing these interviews to know how to ask, what to ask, and what the next steps is, so they could get valuable information to go to the next step?
So yeah, I appreciate your comments. Privilege of the floor is comments, not question and answer. We'll address
Well,
that.
if you will, if not,
Yeah,
then it's a
Dr.
comment.
Coates.
It's a comment for you to take if there is no response.
No, it will be. I think it will be a response. Dr. Coates will address that in his report. I, like you, have kids in the district. Went to the district myself, right? So I think I can speak for everybody at the table, or probably everybody in the room. Number one issue that we're trying to provide, number one thing we're trying to provide for our kids is safety, right, to learn. And having drugs from the outside coming into our schools doesn't help the kids learn, doesn't help the teachers teach them to learn, and doesn't help our administrators manage. So training, I think, is something Dr. Coates will talk about in his report, but I think it's a very good point.
Well, thank you.
Next on our list is Vanessa Rich.
Hi, good evening. I'm Vanessa Rich. I do have a daughter in the middle school, and I'm here today. I know I spoke with Dr. Coates a couple weeks ago, but I am here about the incidents that are taking place in our school district. I am concerned about the disciplinary action. What are these kids getting? It seems like every time these kids are getting slapped on the wrist, and these kids are scared to get in trouble, if that makes sense. I do know Dr. Coates had said New York State law only allows you guys to suspend for 5 days. Then there's a superintendent's hearing. I honestly think that the school district needs to revamp the policies. We expel kids for the rest of the school year. It's obviously drugs are a danger to them, but it's also a danger to the other kids. Here's my daughter in class today. I'm getting texts. I commend you guys for doing the sweep. The parents that have an issue with that, they're probably part of the issue. And I'm just, okay, it's when you do a drug raid, the cops don't say, hey, we're gonna come raid your house. I do commend you guys on doing that. But I really think the school district needs to start putting their foot down as to the disciplinary actions towards kids. What, is the PINS program still around? No, because I was raised in this area. We had the PINS program, don't hear of that anymore. You know, and it's, CPS. You guys are mandated reporters. Is CPS being made aware that these kids are doing drugs in school or before school? I don't understand. You know, we all say, yeah, it's at home, but it's, a lot of times the parents today, they're friends. Oh, as long as they do it at my house, it's just going to snowball effects. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, I hate public speaking.
You're doing a good job, thank you. We do appreciate your comments.
But that's basically, I really hope you guys take into consideration with your school taxes. And this isn't my office, we're a house in Goshen. You know, I really feel the school district, Dr. Coates, I honestly commend for how you run the school. You know, but the kids, and the parents need to, you know, stand behind the school board and, you know, support them. Better policies and, you know,
I think a lot of our, the only comment I'll make, and thank you for your comments, and going back to Commissioner Regan's comments, the safety committee met on Saturday morning for about 3-4 hours. Some of these actions that you're seeing today were developed out of that meeting. We also talked about policy and reviewed the policy, and I think we tried to communicate that policy in an email. I think that went out, right? So the policy is out there in email and what the steps are, what is being done, first time offender, second time offender, third time offender. And I think there's certain things we can do and we can't do. And I think we reviewed the policy, and I think we were at the time pretty comfortable with the policy. And it was pretty strict in a sense, but it's not saying we can't review the policy again. So thank you for your comments.
I'd also tell you, PINS is no more.
I don't understand why, and I think that happens with a lot of our kids. They don't have guidance today. They don't, the kids today, they're not like when we were growing up. We had, things were just different. Unfortunately, this is how it is today, but I really feel we want to take a hold of our school district, our kids. It's, look at this year, imagine next year. You know, the stories that I hear from kids, this one vapes at home, their mom. It's unbelievable, and the teachers hear this, and I understand how the teachers can't do anything. Something's gotta give here. I think a lot of agree.
And the good thing came out of that safety meeting is we had representation with the village.
Yes.
And the police department, Chief Watt was in attendance.
Because I spoke with
Sergeant
them
Smolsey
also,
was in
yeah.
attendance. So we are working all together, and I think we all recognize that it takes a village. It's kind of a corny thing to say, but it does.
Yeah, because I
And I
also,
think in these issues, it takes a village, right? The drugs are not being distributed in school.
well,
right?
I wouldn't say they're not being distributed.
By school personnel, they're not being distributed in schools,
No.
so they're coming in from outside,
Okay, yeah.
right? So let's just be honest with it.
Okay,
Right.
honest with where the drugs are coming
They're
from.
not coming from inside the school.
I know, but
So we gotta work on the community, and we gotta educate the community, not just, we gotta educate the kids, the parents, everybody, on what, to Mr. Regan's point, we gotta be able to train the teachers, everybody's gotta become more aware, because this is a big issue, it's a pandemic, this is a real
and it's
pandemic, right?
spiraling
This-
out of control
yeah.
in the past 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid one of those kids found that kid in the wall today.
Yep.
No, he grabbed onto his classmate before he fell and foamed out the mouth.
Yep.
I,
Thank you, yeah, appreciate it.
so maybe we want to speed things up, and like it's going to be very devastating. We talk about mental health with these kids. Do you know how traumatic that would be for them to God forbid find a student? I mean, really, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Carissa Bea? Am I saying it right?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
So I'm also here to talk about the recent substance abuse issues in the high school and middle school now. But first of all, I just wanted to thank all of you for your time and attention. So as students of Goshen High School, we're concerned. Many of our peers have experienced adverse health effects from the use of illicit substances, and this also led to the death of one of our beloved students earlier this year. And these events are a sad reflection of the larger issue of substance abuse in Goshen that has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I've gathered with a large student body who all agree that there must be change within our community. Among them, myself, Carissa Bayak, I am a co-president of Young Progressives, Bridget Bennis, who couldn't be here, the other co-president of Young Progressives, Ava Kalos, the president of Young Republicans, Andrew Kula, the president of Student Senate, Carly Larson, the co-president of Student Senate, Kiara Paulino, our Student Senate representative, AJ Memoir, the president of National Honor Society, Andy Malkin, the vice president of National Honor Society, and the members of Young Progressives and Young Republicans. And then among them, I have some students joining me today, Jada Bowman, Jake DeJuno, and Phoenix Grimm. So we're all very concerned about what's been happening in our community. So unfortunately, many of these individuals were not able to make it today due to other obligations and responsibilities, but their presence remains here and in this request. So we already spoke with Dr. Coates about our ideas, and we believe that there are a multitude of routes that can be taken to address this problem. But there are certain specific actions that can be taken that would minimize the effects of substance abuse within Goshen High School. So we hope with your help we can try to implement these plans into actions. So ultimately we want to increase student safety, awareness, and education regarding substance abuse within our school and community. So first we ask that a student services representative and certified alcoholism and substance abuse counselor are licensed by the state are made available to all the students at Goshen High School. So this individual should have a background and training in substance abuse. And we used to have access to a counselor on school premises, however, that position was excised. And since then, there has been a notable uptake in these instances. And we understand that the budget has already been decided upon, and adding a new position is a huge expense. However, even just having a professional development training for one of our current guidance counselors to be certified would really benefit our school. And we think that having this position is really essential. So then we also ask that there are substantial reviews and revisions to the health curriculum regarding drug education. First, that the signs of an overdose for specific drugs, as well as what to do if a student encounters an overdose, are a required part of the health curriculum. Right now, we learn about general signs of an overdose, but we don't learn about specific drugs. So if a student encounters an overdose, they might not necessarily know how to deal with that firsthand. So and I know that students receive an email, and parents as well, advising them of the warning signs of a drug overdose and substance abuse, but this really needs to be a part of the health curriculum. We can't expect students to learn this themselves. Second, we want students to be taught about what Narcan is and the signs of an opioid overdose, when to use Narcan, and how to administer Narcan as a part of the health curriculum. So our school nurse and Officer Swansea have Narcan on the premises, and they're trained and available to administer a dose if needed. However, we think it's important that students are made aware of at least what Narcan is, because many are not even aware of that. So in case they encounter an overdose and there's not a trained adult present. These students who have experienced adverse health effects are incredibly lucky that it happened during school hours, because I can't imagine what could have happened if they had taken these at home where there wasn't help to be offered to them. So really, education is essential in combating this. And then finally, I'd like to emphasize that although our main focus is on addressing the issues within Goshen High School, these are not isolated incidents. As we already saw today, this is spread to the middle school, and the issue's only worsening. And it's not just impacting the high school, really it's a community issue. And we want the best for our community, and I'm sure you all do as well. So I hope that you are receptive to our concerns and willing to work with us on our mission to combat this epidemic our community is facing. So thank you again for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the board, thank you. We appreciate you coming tonight and sharing, because your information and knowledge is greater than ours. Really, you're on the front line there. And I can say all the Board of Education here is to support your initiatives, for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much.
It's somebody who grew up here for 50 years, I don't want that older, but I grew up in this community and it breaks my heart at times. And hearing about these kids in middle school, and Mr. Mullane and I were talking a couple minutes ago, it's starting early, like you just said. And my daughter's in middle school, similar to your daughter. My wife's getting texts, and it's like, we're scared. It's a scary time for all. It's something that we all think about and talk about on the board, and like I said earlier to Mr. Whedon, it's their number one goal, provide a safe environment so you guys can learn and enjoy yourselves. And we're gonna work towards that and help everybody any way we can. That's our goal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Next on our agenda is the president's report. I think we covered a lot of it. A lot of it is about today's issues and our current issues in the community. Also, as you take this time to welcome Kara back to our table. Good to see you. Want to make any comments? Are you good? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have all mentioned a lot of important issues that are going on, and similar to Chris and the rest of the students from high school, I can say that it's very concerning to be on the front lines, as you put it. I also have family within middle school, so having them be in that experience was a little frightening to me, because they're exposed to such a young age. My cousin, he started panicking, not being with the familiar situation, not being comfortable. He could take it.
Yeah.
But as Prison put it, education is the way to go. And recognizing that this water issue is especially important. But making sure to be mindful of the multiple issues that could be influencing substance use within students this young is really important. At least I think. Recognizing that they might be using for multiple reasons, whether it be family issues or mental health issues, I feel like is also important when it comes to looking out for disciplinary action, because it is multiple factors that go into getting into substance use so young. So I feel like, if anything, those three things should be kept in mind.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Also, Castellane delivered this invitation. We have some good news in the community. We have 3 Eagle Scouts that are getting their Eagle Scout from Troop 63. Alexander Canal, Daniel Hartley, and Samuel Legg. And we invited the board and administrators to their ceremony. Saturday, June 4th, 2022 at 1 p.m. I'll pass this around to everybody to put it on the calendar. We appreciate their invitation, and we congratulate them on their success. So, pass this down to Tom. That concludes my report. Next on the agenda is the legislative update. Shannon Johnson.
I don't have anything at this time. We have a meeting tomorrow, so I'll have information for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci. So I want to spend a few minutes just addressing further the events of today and talk really about the multi-layered approach to how we got to where we are. As our students and some of you spoke about today, education is our first resource. To be able to not only strengthen, as our students spoke about, the information that they have to try to combat this on their own, because student voice in the process, if our students reach out and say, we've had enough, how much more traction we can make and how much more progress we can make with eradicating this out of our schools. We want to make sure that we continue our progress in education and make sure that our students have that information that they're seeking and that they get it even earlier, as you spoke about in your comments before. Second piece is really how do we monitor within the building, and this speaks to your question on training. When we think about how our building administrators are trained on a regular basis, they have opportunities to go to law conferences. And at those law conferences, they're more trained on what they can and what they can't ask, where they can and they can't look. So to your point, perhaps some collaboration with the law enforcement agencies that we already have partnerships with to talk about specific questions and make sure that those questions can be answered in the course of an investigation. We want that partnership to continue, so where we can hand off information to say, it's going to this home, it's going here, it's going there, and let law enforcement do its job beyond that. That's something that we can really work on moving forward. But as far as the training that they get, ours is more on the legal side of what can you ask, what can't you ask, where can you look, and where can you not look when it comes to, I'll say, a student interrogation when an instance of substances come up in the building. Really, the last piece is when we start to see a major uptick is where we landed today. How do we take strong action to really slam the brakes on where we are? We've had a decent amount of education this year. We've had additional feet on the ground, if you will, in middle school, and we were still seeing an uptick in the number of occurrences where drugs were appearing in now both buildings. We had to take a strong approach to say, we have to set the tone that this is no longer okay, which was the reason that we brought in law enforcement today, and we'll monitor as we will see fit to potentially have to do it again in the future. I think keeping with that three-pronged approach will help us continue to move in a positive direction. The reality is, I can't control social media. I can't control what happens when the student gets on Scotchtown Avenue when they go home. I have to rely on families in the community to do their part at the same time. But hopefully with that education that we give, with the tone that we set, that will translate out into the community at the same time. The last part of that, it really focuses on policies. When you think about policies, and we alluded to that, or Mr. Pucci alluded to that in his earlier comments, school has an obligation to educate students. You know, when you speak about expulsion, no, and I'm gonna go out on a limb on opinion here, forgive me. Expelling a child doesn't lead to anything good. There needs to be consequences. There is an opportunity to put a child perhaps in an alternative educational setting, put them in an evening high school, give them an opportunity to function better in a different setting. That goes along with a progressive code of conduct. We have an evening high school that functions between our middle school and our high school, where if students need to come out of the general population, sometimes receive additional counseling, additional support, smaller instruction when they're in that setting. Many times that helps them to see the error of their ways, and many times rehab themselves along with that counseling that they are receiving. Policy needs to function in that manner. Going from 0 to 100 really doesn't teach a student anything. Giving them an opportunity to correct. They make a mistake, the consequence needs to be a little bit more. The consequence needs to be a little bit more as we progress through the issues, with hopefully that they're learning as they go along, and perhaps they don't reach that higher threshold of having to be disciplined even further. I think if we can stay the course, add the additional training, look for ways that we can always strengthen that our system in the ways that we can, add the additional education with the help of our student population that's able to do so, I believe that we will be able to push back on the issues that we are currently experiencing.
Do we have something in place to collaborate with students on these type of issues, or if it's not, can be great?
So, and I'm gonna give all the credit where credit is due. Our students reached out to me, and it was as simple as having a sit down and really brainstorming on this together. As far as more formal mechanisms, when we do a curriculum review, Mr. Carter always leads our curriculum review. I've already invited them to be a part of that when we're able to do it, to look at our health curriculum, look at exactly what we're teaching. But
Well, I'm just saying, I think maybe, you know, they're leaning more than we do.
sure,
Right, so I think there should be some type of comfortable arrangement. I know the counselor's not there or whatever, but maybe we can arrange something that is more an open dialogue, doesn't have to be so formal. And to, not that formal is wrong, maybe quarterly formal or twice a year formal, but maybe in between there's a more collaborative effort for the kids to be comfortable and comfortable.
there's regular advisory committees that we can form.
I think that would be, I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe Carter would look on that. And maybe that will help you in
Yes, thank you.
your efforts.
Keep moving on. So, with the board, we have been having extensive conversation on our strategic planning initiative. We are at that phase now, and several meetings ago, I'd given the board a presentation on the draft work that the strategic planning committee had been working on. So just as a reminder, we'll be putting a revised mission statement in front of the board for endorsement. The strategic planning committee came up with 2 specific goals. One of the goals being focused on healthy choices. Obviously, a large part of that will be about substance abuse and health curriculum at the same time. The other goal focuses on comprehensive K-12 alignment in our academic program. We've also come up, the committee's also come up with what values that we value, redundancy, forgive me, what values we want to put into our plan. And finally, one of the best things that they come up with is really what they have coined affectionately the portrait of a Goshen Central School District learner. What do they want the student that graduates from Goshen High School, with the assumption that we've had 13 years of education in our district, to look like as they get on to higher education, the workforce, the military, whatever they choose for life after high school. We're at that phase now where the committees are getting ready to split up into action planning teams. These goals are great, but how do we effectuate these goals? We've formed our 2 action planning teams. One will work on each goal respectively. In that process, they will start to come up with measurable steps. What work can we complete in a reasonable time frame over the next 18 to 24 months? What I would like to do at this point is have our consultant come back and present to the Board of Education. She's actually proposed to do it remotely because I think many times it's easier for everyone. We're looking at 2 dates, either May 9th or May 18th. She's available for either.
Is it May 18th,
Coincides with the meeting.
coincides with the meeting, would be easier for the board, I think, because that gave you enough time between May 18th and June to do your work.
So
Are you okay with that?
the framework will be ready by then. The action steps will work well into the fall,
Okay,
but the framework will be ready by then.
so maybe May 18th at the beginning of the meeting?
That's okay. Okay, so I'll set up an hour with her beforehand, and she will bring the board up to date on everything that we've
No,
done.
maybe we can start a half hour early, maybe start at 6, and start at every meeting, so.
Okay. And I think it's important that the board be up to speed on everything from a consultant's perspective to
Yeah.
allow for a voice in there to make sure that everyone feels that we're moving in the right direction. Great.
6 o'clock, okay?
Okay. My next item, as part of our annual goals and objectives, we have talked about redoing our guidance plan. And in one of our pronged approaches in the budget presentation for this year is the addition of a counselor at Scotchtown Avenue Elementary. That will help us be in line with the guidance standards for New York State. We have representatives from every building, both teacher, administrator, and counselor that will be represented, and we have a parent representative as well. We will also be looking specifically at college and career counseling in the plan to see how we can strengthen what we offer to families as students get ready for post-secondary education and what that plan may look like for them. Those meetings are scheduled for all throughout May. The goal is to have a revised plan presented to the board for approval at the June board meeting. The next piece I believe is important that we start to message out to the community. So from the beginning of the pandemic, the United States Department of Agriculture had made a move to make sure that all school lunches would be fully funded throughout the country. So regardless of income level, regardless of status, any student that walked in that took a lunch, that lunch was fully funded by that money that came from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. That will end at the end of this school year. So we will go back to a full pay system going into the new year. As you saw earlier this year, when Mr. Molnikel, our food service director, made a presentation, that will have significant impact on our food service budget. We also need to communicate that to our families. Families will need to get back into the habit of putting money on their children's school lunches, school lunch counts. In collaboration with that, Mr. Carter's going to be talking about some of the work that we're going to be doing with the Wellness Committee to look at our offerings in our program at the same time. But I think we need to start to message that out to our families so that they know in September, has essentially ended. I know there's some advocacy groups out there pushing, trying to get the Department of Agriculture to revisit this. They've looked at it from the state level, but it was a pretty heavy lift, and I think the funding for such a program is gonna be very, very difficult for them to accomplish long term.
We may need to do a little education, because probably parents, I go put money in the account, yeah, I don't even know about my school books. You know, so I think maybe that, I would think I would incorporate that into, their plans, because I think maybe you start before the school year is out.
Yep. And I had the opportunity at the middle school during the fifth grade moving up to introduce it to the parents that night, but I think we need to make sure that we message that
Yeah.
throughout the rest of this year, because you're absolutely right.
I'll do once a month for,
Yeah.
until September.
Yeah.
They don't look at it.
Well, you can track what they're doing, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What they're not doing.
Right. And then last, in our meetings with our building level and district level administrators, we've been looking specifically at the goals and objectives that the Board of Education set with us earlier this year, and also looking at a lot of student performance data. So I just wanted to let the board know that we are preparing at our June meeting to give a summary update on those goals and objectives, everything that we've been working towards, the guidance plan, the wellness committee, our tech plan, everything that we went through earlier this year will give a summative update, but we're also preparing to give really a broad scope overview. Mr. Carter's started working with our building administrators on this. Academic data that we were seeing both pre and post-pandemic, and some of the areas, the targets that we really feel strongly we'll need to take a look heading into the new school year. So that meeting, we may have a lot to offer. I just wanted to let everyone know that those reports will take us some time to get through, especially the goals and objectives portion, because there's multiple different facets to that.
Well, will any of that data be useful in our summer offering?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's what summer, the summer offering can help us, we're deficient in some areas, or seeing deficient in some areas, maybe that's an area that we can focus.
So the
Enhancement, we'll call
right.
it, in the summer?
Right, so we will not have the state testing data back at that point from the K test. That doesn't usually come later into the summer, but especially the localized assessments, the MAPS assessments,
Right.
the formative assessments that we've been giving at the building level, that will all be available, and that helps us to target the resources that we put in place.
Okay.
And with that, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Personnel, and Technology report, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci. Good evening, everyone. So as Dr. Coates had mentioned, we will also kick off our Wellness Committee meetings beginning next Tuesday. We'll start at 3:30 here in the boardroom. We'll run it probably no later than 5 p.m. We will run every Tuesday except for the 17th due to the vote. I anticipate that we'll run into probably that first or second week of June. Tends to be a little bit of a larger plan. If it is possible to revise and edit the plan and present the board with a comprehensive, polished product for that June meeting, we'll certainly do that. If not, I anticipate it will be ready for the July meeting. We do have representatives of all of our major stakeholder groups. We've reached out to students, parents, teachers. I do think we'll be well represented. And again, we'll focus on student wellness, personal safety and wellness, nutrition, specifically our food services, physical activity, and any other school-based activities that would be applicable in the Wellness Committee. So once again, hopefully we'll get that done in mid-June and present that. Next up, we have Gladiator Games. So if you recall, last year we began the Gladiator Games program during the summer months for academic enrichment. Thought it was a great program that we ran. We were able to use a lot of the federal funding last year, and we plan to do so again this year. So we do have a healthy amount, I believe, of federal funding available to do so. However, Dr. Coates and I will meet with all of our administrators food services, transportation department, and put together the Gladiator Games program for this summer. I think the key here is to kind of go back to what Mr. Pucci and Dr. Coates had mentioned, that we do have a lot of local assessment measures to rely on, but also we rely heavily on our teacher recommendations, our principal discretion. There will be individuals that may not need academic intervention or enrichment services for the summer months in all areas, but there may be one specific area outside of what we know from our testing. So we rely heavily on our recommendations. Again, I think looking at the format, it may take on a different format this year based on the funding available in multiple pools, including food services and transportation. And also the duration may change. We're not quite there yet. We're just entering that planning phase, and we'll certainly report out as soon as we have that information to share. But we look forward to the Gladiator Games this summer. And also, I noticed here on new business that you do have the memorandum of understanding with the Orange County Department of Mental Health. So I just wanted to thank the board in advance for your support of the satellite clinic at Goshen High School. We're really excited to have this beginning in September, running all the way through, including the summer months of 2023. I think it's something that we certainly need, and we look forward to the potential for expanding. Orange County Department of Mental Health has been wonderful working with us. Darcy Miller, Angela Turk, they've been responsive. It's been a long time coming, but we had a pandemic in the middle, but they were consistent with communication. We're grateful for that. And I also want to thank our PPS department, Dr. Hendershot and Ms. Marino, for their hard work and diligence in helping to secure this. Great team effort, very proud of it, and looking forward to getting it started. And that will be it for me this evening. Thank you.
Can we look at scheduling a tech committee, anything else in the agenda?
I believe so.
Sure. Maybe you want to throw some dates out for us?
We'll start sending those out by email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Any motion? Elaine Chan? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education accepts the retirement of Alan Benson, school bus driver, effective May 1st, 2022. Mr. Benson has been with the district for 24 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. All in favor? Opposed? There is no old business. We'll move to new business. 11.1, need a motion to approve minutes for regular meeting and special meeting. Shannon and Tom. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes for the April 19th, 2022 regular board meeting and April 21st, 2022 special board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.2, need a motion to approve entering into a pilot agreement with Borrego Solar Systems, Inc. Tom and Billy. Another one? Yes, sir. Whereas on April 20th, 2022, Borrego Solar Systems, known as developer, notified the Goshen Central School District that intends to construct a solar energy system on real property located within the district in accordance with Real Property Tax Law 487. And whereas the statute provides the developer with a 15-year tax exemption on any increase to the value of the real estate on which the solar energy system is constructed. And whereas the statute requires the district to notify the developer if the district intends to request that the developer enter into a payment in lieu of taxes or pilot agreement within 60 days of receipt of the notification. And whereas the Board of Education intends to request such a pilot. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education intends to request that the developer enter into a pilot agreement in accordance with Real Property Tax Law 487, and be it further resolved that the Superintendent of Schools and such other employees and agents of the district are directed to undertake and complete all acts as required to effect the purposes of this resolution, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. All there?
Aye.
Opposed? 11.3, Mr. Carter just mentioned this. Need a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Orange County for mental health satellite clinic. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves a memorandum of understanding between the Goshen Central School District and the County of Orange to provide for a satellite mental health clinic to be located within Goshen High School, which will be operated by the Orange County Department of Mental Health and licensed by the New York State Office of Mental Health, effective September 1st, 2022 through August 2023. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to enter into, sign, and execute said memorandum of understanding. All in favor? Opposed? 11.4, I need a motion for approval of supplemental memorandum agreement with the Goshen Administrators Association. Shannon and Tom? Be resolved that the Board of Education approves the terms of a supplemental memorandum of agreement between the district and the Goshen Administrators Association dated May 2nd, 2022 regarding terms of employment for a 10-month assistant principal position as presented to the board at this meeting. All fair? Vote. 11.5, approve an inter-municipal cooperative agreement with Menacing Valley School District. Any motion? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the inter-municipal cooperative agreement between the Goshen Central School District and the Menacing Valley School District, which allows for the Goshen Central School District to provide transportation of a new Menacing Valley student to the Boise-Warwick satellite, effective April 19, 2022 through the remainder of the 21-22 school year. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the board president to execute said intermunicipal cooperative agreement. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Privilege of the floor. Board member issues, committee reports. What was I going to say? Negotiation committee? Go blank there for a second. Met with the CSEA yesterday. Unfortunately, I arrived late. Sorry about that. But Mr. Castle was there in attendance, and Dr. Coates and Mr. Carter, and CSEA representatives, and I think by all accounts, a very positive meeting. Hope to have more information to share in the future.
I really like the idea of having that group of getting this together with the students. As you can tell, it's really important to do it on a regular basis, whether or not the issue ceases. I'd love to be a part of it, and I'd love to see more students become more involved, because I can say firsthand that some of the actions taken by the school, recently had people come in to speak to students. While it's an action towards progress, most students don't recognize that it's for their well-being that we're looking at. So like people that we're unfamiliar with especially don't make a significant an impact on students. So I feel like if we come together and start enforcing this as a whole with the community, with people we all know, that it's going to be 10 times more effective than having people come in. It's odd to see how that changes things, but even something so subtle makes a difference.
I agree. Well said. We're going to work towards that. We're going to work towards that. Motion to close the meeting? Tom? All in favor? Opposed?